There's a conversation that happens inside medical and law school admissions offices that most applicants never hear. It happens in committee rooms and in the margins of application files. It's the little moment a dean closes a folder and decides. I spent over 15 years in that room. This is GradMissions Office Hours. I'm Autumn Rains-Lockett, and every week my team and I bring that conversation out into the open because the process was never meant to be a mystery, and your future is too important for guesswork. Let's get to work. We are so excited this week to welcome Rachel Hill to the podcast. Morgan and I are going to talk with Rachel about her journey to law school. And she is, a week and a half away from getting started. So you're just right here in the thick of it. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Yay, perfect. Well, I'm excited because I know you very well. And Morgan, joined the team after you and I were really finished with your application admissions experience. And so Morgan, you probably have questions about Rachel and her experience and the same ones that our audience is going to have. So we're going to let you kind of guide us through this conversation.
Sounds good. I do have a little insight because when I started working and Autumn was like, just do some research on some of our students. This is how you can kind of see how we worked. And of course, she was like, look at Rachel's file because you had applied to all the schools. And
this is how you do it. Because you just did everything I told you to do. And you had already done so much of it before you got to do because you're so smart.
But I think we should start off with, the number one interview question that everyone asks. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got here.
Yeah, so my name is Rachel. I'm originally from Colorado. I grew up in Littleton. I went to Columbine High School, which I'm mentioning because it's a pretty key part of my story afterwards and my ambition to go to law school. I went to the University of Colorado. I loved it there. I majored in political science and math, which gave me an interesting background to approach law school. I feel like I had the analytical, logical side, but also the political science, worldview side. And I think those two things together really helped me in my application process. And then after I graduated from CU, I ended up working for first I interned at the White House doing domestic policy. And then I ended up working for Gabby Giffords, who was a congresswoman in Tucson, Arizona, and then was sadly shot in 2011, but survived. And I worked for her for 2 years as her assistant, doing gun violence prevention work at her nonprofit.
Yeah, very nice. An incredible experience. Yes, start to finish. And so I think one thing that really stood out to me about your application, anytime I meet with someone and we're trying to decide a couple of things. Number one is what's the through line? What's the story? In application cycles like the ones we've been experiencing the past 2 years, and like all the drum beats look like this next one's going to be, you have to know who you are. And from the very first 3.5 seconds of talking to you, you knew, I think you introed yourself a lot like that. I'm always so surprised by people who I meet with who want to go to law school and they don't have any kind of a concrete reason why. Do you have friends like that? Do you know what I'm talking about, these folks?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Obviously, I have a lot of friends who are also applying to law school right now or had applied. And that's not to say that they, might have a disadvantage. I think it could be an advantage because they have more room to explore their passions.
Yeah.
But that's the advice I give is, before you apply, you have to kind of ask yourself, why? Why am I doing this? And but no, I think that's the case for most people, actually. Like I had a very convenient story with convenient experiences that kind of added up to this narrative. Right. So it was maybe easier to craft my application materials because I had it already, but that's not to say that doesn't exist for people. I think you just have to do a little more work to find it.
That's right.
So you took a little bit of break from schooling, obviously, to work. What made you dive back into law school, and why did you think this was the right time for you?
Yeah. During college, a lot of my friends were taking the LSAT and getting ready to go to law school. I think my senior year, I remember like this kid was in student government with me and he goes, "Oh my God, I just got an interview from Harvard." And I was like, okay, cool. Like I had no idea what the law school application process was like, didn't know about interviews, didn't know any of that. And so I didn't know if I wanted to go to law school back in college. I knew I wanted to take some time off, at least go work for a little bit. I'm so glad that I did because I got to have some real world experience. I got to meet so many people, people that gave me mentorship in the process. And so, yeah, after I graduated, I actually didn't have a full-time job when I graduated. I graduated college, took the summer off, went and traveled, which was so much fun, and then got home from traveling and was like, okay, I need to start looking for a job. I actually ended up doing two internships. So one was at a nonprofit I was on the legal team for a gun violence prevention nonprofit. And then after that, I interned at the White House, as I mentioned, doing mental health and veterans policy.
Mm.
And those were things that I had never done before, never experienced policy areas like that. I kind of just got assigned that portfolio, but I ended up loving it. I was so glad to explore those areas too. They're all interconnected, like mental health,
I was gonna
veterans,
say, yeah.
gun violence, they're all connected. And so I kind of got to expand my portfolio, my policy experience through that. While I was at the White House, I knew a lot of lawyers. A lot of lawyers ended up working at the White House, and a lot of them had gone to Yale Law School. And they said the training I received at Yale was the thing that prepared me to do this job. And I saw the work they were doing. And a lot of people think about the White House, think about politicians, and I think there's some bureaucrats who are just there to make people's lives worse. But people I saw there, they weren't getting paid a lot of money. It's a government job at the end of the day. They're getting paid a government salary. And they were working long hours, like day after day, working weekends. And they were coming there because they genuinely cared about their mission, and they wanted to help people. And I saw a lot of myself in those people who wanted to just come back to that building day after day, no matter what was going on the outside, the president, things like that. They wanted to come in, do what they had to do to improve the lives of Americans. And so that's what I saw. I saw they had this training from Yale Law School, and law school, like there were more lawyers than just Yale lawyers. I knew a lot of different lawyers. I saw that they had this special training, and therefore had learned how to think a different way. People say law school teaches you how to think like a lawyer. And so even though they weren't even practicing law, they had this background that really helped them succeed in that area. And so from there, I was like, okay, I think, I'd always kind of thought about law school. I was actually on the mock trial team. But I think it was really there that I was like, okay, I want to pursue this. So then when I got a job with Giffords, I made it my goal to first get into the job and make sure everything, I could feel it out. But then as soon as the new year started, this was January 25, I said, okay, January 1st, studying for the LSAT, and then I'm applying this fall. And then that's what I did. And so the rest is history. And here I am, August 2026, about to start. So.
And where are you about to start, Rachel?
Yale. Yeah, I'm going to Yale Law, which is why I mentioned the Yale stuff earlier.
And that was your goal. When we start work, I'm a manifest girl. Like, do you have to do the work? Yes, but let's state our goals, and so we know where we're headed. And that was, one of your goals from jump was if I want to work on the Hill, I need to go to Yale. And for better or worse, that was the opinion, and it felt a little bit shoot your shot, as I think it does for everyone. I have talked with people with perfect LSAT scores and perfect GPAs with beautiful backgrounds, and it still feels like a shoot your shot. But I think it's important to do that. You didn't just apply to Yale, though.
No, I applied to most of the T14 law schools, mostly ones in places that I wanted to live. And so I ended up applying to, I think, 9 schools. And so I applied to Yale, Harvard, Stanford, Penn, Duke, Georgetown, UVA, and then my undergrad, CU Boulder, and UCLA. I applied there too. And once I got some decisions, I withdrew from 3 of them, but I got accepted to every single one besides the 3 I withdrew from. So I got into Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Duke, Georgetown, and CU, and I withdrew from the rest.
Yeah. And that's the kind thing to do, by the way. That's how you have good admissions karma. I try to teach this. And like, once you know you're not going to go somewhere because you've gotten an offer somewhere, That's the right thing to do. How did you make that decision? Because it was a hard one.
Yeah, it was hard. I visited, so I based a lot of my applications, like I said, on where I wanted to live. That's why I didn't apply to NYU or Columbia because amazing schools, but I'm not a New York person. That's just my personal preference. And so I knew I wanted to be on the East Coast. I didn't end up visiting Stanford because I thought, based on my offers, I would prefer East Coast over West Coast. So then it was kind of down to Harvard and Yale, which I would tell everyone, yeah, I'm still deciding. Where are you deciding from? Harvard and Yale. I'd be like, okay. Um, so I visited both. I went to their admitted students days, which I highly recommend.
Yes.
They're using those days to put on a show to make you want to come. Um, Harvard's, and so yeah, I visited Boston, I think in March of this year, and then New Haven in April. And I think the decision came down to the vibes that I felt at Yale. All the students I met, and not to say that the students at Harvard were bad, like they were amazing people, so kind too. I really loved chatting with all of them. Um, but I think Yale was just a better fit for me. I felt like I connected better with the students I talked to there. I think they had more programs and clinics that I was interested in. Um, and I think New Haven is prettier than Cambridge. My personal opinion.
Shots fired. I love
I want
that.
to know a little bit about the application process and how, since I wasn't a part of it, I can ask you, how was working with GradMissions during that process?
Unbelievable. 10 out of 10. I'm not just saying this because I'm on the podcast. I say it to everyone. I've said it since I think our first console call. Um, when I first talked to Autumn, I was still in Tucson and I was late to the game. I took the LSAT in August, so about a year ago, and didn't think about my application until afterwards, which was a mistake. I should have been thinking about it much, much earlier. But in my head, I was like, I just got to get done with the LSAT, then I can focus on this. So right after I took the August LSAT, I started kind of looking into consulting. I thought that, I wanted the best possible outcome for myself. And so I might as well set myself up as best I could. And so I started on Instagram, social media, Reddit, maybe just perusing, seeing what's out there. And I had a few calls with people and I don't know, they were fine. But then I had my consult call with Autumn and we just clicked right away. I thought I was like, oh my God, she actually hears me. She cares about what I have to say. Um, there were other calls where they were like, this is what we offer. They didn't ask me a single question about myself or my goals or anything. And so I'm like, okay, well, that's great, but how do I know that we're going to work well together? But with Autumn, it was like, we talked about my personal goals, what I wanted out of it,
I
how
think
my
we like outlined your personal statement on the call, which
I think
doesn't
so,
always
yeah.
happen, but
Yeah.
sometimes it just lightning strikes.
Yeah, we did. And so after that, I was like, wow, this is amazing. I talked to some friends and family, and I was like, yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, do I need this? And I think it was my mom that was like, well, yeah, she sounds amazing. She was like, because I was glowing after the call. She was like, if she had that effect on you after a 20-minute console call, then, she's going to help your application. And
I
so,
was also glowing because you're a delight. Like it was just we were both yeah. I think we have like known each other in other lives. I'm not even
I think
kidding.
so. Yeah, and even afterwards, like Autumn, before I even hired Autumn, like she gave me tips and advice and things, and no one else had done that. Like
Yeah.
that alone shows how much care GradMissions puts into their people to just do that after a console call where I hadn't even decided yet. It was amazing. And ever since it's been glorious. So
Yeah. You honestly, 9 schools is a pretty modest list. Most of our clients in this in Esta Economia, right? They're applying to like 15, 20 schools. And so, it made me a little bit nervous to have that. We don't have like a minimum of or maximum of schools you have to apply to. But then because you had done the work, right? Like, I would like to dig in and double click a little on the LSAT. Like, how did you prepare for the LSAT? Because that is something that a lot of people really underestimate. They plan to take it in like November, December, and they're going to study while they're doing tailgate and recruitment and everything in the fall. Like, can you tell me a little bit about your approach to the LSAT?
Yeah. So like I said, I January 1st was like, I'm going to study this year. I'm going to take it this year and apply in the fall. And originally I was like, okay, I'll take June. Then I'll have all summer to do my applications and submit in the fall. Perfect. Well, I was working a full-time job. My job was to travel the country with my boss, with Giffords, and we were going to different cities. I traveled like half the time, like 50% of the time. And during those travel days, I was working 12-hour days. So I was pretty busy. And I was like also studying for the LSAT. And so anytime we had a plane ride longer than 3 hours, I would take an entire practice LSAT on the plane. I
Wow.
know, which is crazy. Like, I hope people listening to this study better than I did because that was crazy. Um, like
But you did what you could do.
I
Yeah.
did.
I
Yeah.
mean, you made it work.
Yeah, I did. And I'm glad that I did. I think looking back, I probably would have done things a little differently. Like I studied when I was at home too, and that was helpful. But then I was also like, okay, if I can take a full LSAT in these conditions, then I
Yes.
can do it on the real day. So but I got to, I don't even know when the June registration deadline was, but I got to that and I was like, I'm not ready. I can't do June. So I gave myself more time, registered for August, studied all through the summer, but inconsistently because I was working a full-time job. But I found that taking one section a day was good. It helped. Um, if my boss was in a meeting that I wasn't in, just take a section while she's in her meeting.
Yeah.
Or, if we're at breakfast, like she's eating breakfast, I'll just take a section. And so that was good. But yeah, I do wish I would have, I guess, I don't even know if it was timing or I guess more consistency that I wish I would have done. I do wish I would have signed up for September. Like my LSAT score was good. Wasn't a 180, but it was good. But I think if I would have taken September, I would have probably could have gotten a better score. But I didn't. I didn't really know. I didn't know a lot going into it. I don't have any lawyers in my family. A lot of my friends had taken the LSAT years ago when logic games were still on the
Oh,
LSAT.
yeah.
So I don't know. I did what I could, and luckily I
And you
got the
didn't do a
score.
formal prep course. You just kind of self-studied.
Yeah, I bought the Law Hub subscription.
Yeah.
My last month, I bought LSAT Demon and did that
Mhm.
for like just a drill, and that was good for the last month. But yeah, other than that, nope, just self-studied, just used the
Yeah.
LSAC bank and then
Yeah.
yeah, took it.
I want to dig in a little bit on your perspective statement. That's what Harvard calls it.
Mhm.
There's other, different schools
Yeah.
call it different things. But so many times I talk, if you're watching this, you'll see, Rachel is Caucasian with, what is it's a little dark. Is your hair kind of like strawberry blonde?
Okay, well, that's the big question
Yeah.
because I'm brunette and I
Okay.
I die by that. But when I moved to DC, everyone was like, "You're blonde." I'm like, "I'm not blonde. I am like hair. I'm brunette."
Okay. I'll
But
give you but
but
anyway,
like how I describe it, I'm a white girl from Colorado.
you're a white girl from Colorado. Thank you. It's always so awkward for me to be like, because sometimes I work with people and they're like, I'm Chickasaw. I'm like, shoot, I never would have known that. So I don't assume anything. But right, there wasn't like an obvious diversity. You don't identify as LGBTQ. You don't have like a raging disability we need to disclose. Like there was
Mhm.
no like major diversity statement. And
Yeah.
so I want to talk a little bit about how we approached your perspective statement and your, diversity statement, so to speak, and how we differentiated. And then I want to get into your Yale 250 too, please.
Yeah, so we because going into this, I also had no idea about this statement. I had no clue what I would write. My like personal statement, I had a good idea,
Sure.
but yeah, I went in and then talking to Autumn, she was like, "Well, you majored in math. Like that's really interesting and unique." And I was like, really? Like, I don't know. That's just what
It
I did
is.
on the side in college. Like, I always described my math major as like a break from everything else in my life. Because I
Mm.
was political science, I was in student government, doing other stuff. Then I go to math class, and it was like I could turn all that off and just do differential equations, and it was wonderful. But then Autumn was like, that's so interesting, and law schools would love to hear that. And so we talked about math. We talked about how we talked about a particular class I took where there was a proof. I loved proofs. That was my favorite. Um, one of the best experiences I had was my intro to proofs class, or actually it was called analysis. You math majors, you know analysis. I'll take it. But it's like the proofs heavy class. And in this class, the professor was like, okay, solve this proof. And also, this is pre AI. This is pre ChatGPT. Like, solve this proof without help because you will feel so good when you do. And it was something about upper and lower bounds of a set of numbers. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. Like, I want to actually solve it myself. And I bought a whiteboard to hang in my room so I could write the proof on there. And it took me like 3 days, but finally I got it. It clicked. Like, it clicked for me. I was so excited. Like, I went to my professor the next day and was like, I got it. Like, I found like the key piece I needed to solve the proof. And she was so excited for me. She's like, yeah, I remember being a student in analysis, solving that proof. That's why I give it to you guys because it was
I
transformational.
get chills every time you tell that story.
Yeah, and it was so amazing. And I
Yeah.
love that class. I love that professor. And I'll never forget it. And from then on, I had a whiteboard in my bedroom. Actually, in my college bedroom, it was my Zoom background on purpose because it had math. It was cool.
Yes. The
Um,
Good Will Hunting of it all.
exactly. It was cool. And I loved it. And so we talked about that experience. And then here's the key though, we shifted that experience to talking about finding the key piece of evidence in law and how that translates to my passion in like for pursuing law. And also we talked about the gun violence stuff. I think having that woven throughout all of my essays was so important. We talked about how being a math major helps me be optimistic because I want to find solutions. And I think there was a line in my statement that was like, um, people would think that working in gun violence would make me sad and pessimistic, but it actually makes me more hopeful than most because I'm a problem solver and I know that the solution is out there and I want to help find it. And so it was beautiful. It was
It was
amazing.
beautiful.
Yeah, it was,
It's
it
the
was so
gossamer thread that we always
cool.
talk with our clients about. When you can find that gossamer thread, it was woven through your resume,
Yeah.
it was woven through your personal statement, your perspective statement, your Yale 250,
Yep.
all of your letters of recommendation echoed the same thing. I'm sure in your interviews, you were also hitting these same points. And it wasn't one note, it had a lot of different dimension
Yeah.
and texture to it.
Mhm. Yeah. It was so cool. But onto the Yale 250,
Yeah.
we also included that.
Yeah.
And that was one of the hardest ones I wrote because
It always is because it's so short, 250 words. It's
it's
hard.
it's so short. And then it's also how do you talk about yourself while also talking about because I don't know the exact wording of the prompt, but they want you to think about a problem. And what they want you to show is your thinking. So
Yeah.
how do you also show your thinking while talking about yourself? And I read examples. They come out with like an example packet every year with some past student examples, and they were so interesting. But I was like, I don't know, none of these really translate to me or anything. And so we thought about this. And so Yale does not ask for a perspective statement, just the personal, the 250, and then the optional essay. And so we thought about how do we weave this like math idea with gun violence in 250 words.
Right.
And we thought about this crazy law that exists in the US that the gun violence prevention movement deals with on a daily basis because it's like it applies to the gun industry. It's called PLACA. Um, and a lot of the like legal teams in gun violence prevention are tackling this law, just that law. Because in order to sue any gun manufacturer, you have to find an exemption to the law. So we kind of thought about, okay, finding these exemptions in this law are similar to finding these, like something in a proof to
Yeah.
solve the proof.
Yeah.
And so we thought about how can we do that in 250 words. And so I started by talking about PLACA, how I was when I was an intern, we were talking about PLACA exemptions, and then talked about how as a math major, I was doing that too. We were thinking about finding exemptions to proofs. Actually, I mean, this is a different essay, but we talked a lot about proofs by contradiction.
Yes.
In order to contradict a proof, you just have to find one counterexample. So we thought about how all that fits together. And then I think the final line is something like maybe law and math are two pursuits of the same vein or something like that. Two
Yeah.
pursuits of the same, like it's all the same. It's all they can all work together. And yeah, and that was my 250. And so it was kind of it was thinking about an idea, thinking about this law, and then tying in my own background, how I approach thinking about that law, and how maybe we need to treat math and law as more, what's the right wording,
Take
like
a more mathematic approach to the
right,
law.
right, exactly, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was my 250, and I thought it was so good. I loved
I
it.
think I really agree. I think it was. And you said something in that description of the Yale 250 about reading previous versions, reading other people's versions. And I think that's what many people do before
Mhm.
they finally throw up their hands and like, fine, uncle, I need help. I need outside perspective on my story. People who don't, and they just take those versions that other people have written and kind of retrofit them to their own stories. And it's true, like what you write is true, but it may not be the best thing to share.
Right,
And
agreed.
I think that's when mentorship is done well, you come out of it feeling so much more confident about your
Yeah,
story. Like you are starting your 1L year knowing exactly who you are, hopefully in even a little bit stronger way than if you had just tried to retrofit your story to what you thought the school wanted to hear.
right. Yeah, I don't know what I would have done if we didn't talk through it together. I think I would have looked at one of those examples, tried to alter it to fit like maybe gun violence, but there's no way I would have thought about putting math in there. So
So yeah, that's the piece of the diverse piece is that because of the way the words and the phrases diversity and inclusion have shifted over the past few years, it's really opened up what you can write about in those spaces. And so instead of skipping a huge piece of real estate on the application, which most of you are going to do, if you don't really think about it, you'll just skip it. You're like, oh, that doesn't apply to me. But if you really think deeply, there's something in your lived experience that is unique. And that's what we want. We want to know how your approach to law is going to be even just a little bit different than the traditional person applying to law school. And not just what you'll bring to the tapestry of our class, but what are you bringing to the profession of law that the most, stereotypical law school applicants are not bringing?
yeah, I agree. And even I had the opportunity obviously to meet a bunch of my future classmates at the Yale Admitted Students Day, and they're not all just like they didn't all have a 180 LSAT and
Yeah.
a 4.0 GPA. They're all just from different random walks of life, and they had something to contribute. And even if it's not like totally obvious, like mine was not totally obvious. And like talking to all of them, it's like they're fascinating people and they're fun to talk to. And like you can tell that they had something in their application that Yale was like, we need this person to contribute to our class.
Yes.
So
Yes. And the more wholly you show up in your application, the better fit your law school is going to be.
yeah,
Yeah, if you had shifted who you were for every single personal statement and perspective statement to meet what you thought that law school was looking for, it would have been number one, probably kind of disorienting, to be such a chameleon. But then number two, what if you end up somewhere that's just there was a law school on your list? We're like, is this like culturally going to be the right fit? We didn't know. And I think after you saw what was the right fit, it became abundantly clear that that was not the right school for you. But I think so many of you are so laser focused on getting in that you don't think about this is 3 years of your life. This is your legal network for the rest of your life. Studies show geographically you're going to be practicing pretty close to where you go to law school. And so it's a big decision and it's a big investment of time, money, resources, all those things.
And also exhausting to not be true to yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, if you're not honest with yourself from the beginning through the application and you're not representing your brand and you've created this whole new brand of who you are, goodness, that's exhausting. And then you have to be that person for the next, I mean, essentially the rest of your life, because like you said, the next 3 years turn into the next 50 years because that's your network. And
Right.
that's who you're working with and working alongside. And not to say you're not going to evolve in law school, because you will,
Mhm.
but you're still going to have your core that's
Right.
been there
Yeah.
and
Autumn,
what has shaped you to who you are today.
right. Autumn, I was gonna ask, like, as a former admissions officer, can you tell? Can you tell when someone's not being wholly authentic?
Yes, you really can. It
Yeah.
feels thin. It feels almost a little saccharine. I think we were talking on a podcast, I think 1 or 2 episodes ago, about the why X law school essay, right? Like, why specifically are you applying to this law school? And some law schools have that. And when you start quoting like the number of seats in our courtroom, I'm like,
Yeah.
really? Like, there was nothing else you could tell me about why this is a good fit for you. It's more like you describing why this law school exists. It's just, it can feel really inauthentic. And then, especially for those schools that have an interview, I think those are the applicants who struggle the most in an interview because they're trying to remember what they wrote in this application as opposed to another application. And if you're not being authentic, it's just going to come out. And you may be recruited for a specific law school for a specific reason, and then you get there and that's not to say that you can't change your mind, right? I mean, the JD is famously so portable and so transferable. And we have people who come through GradMissions who are NFL sports agents, and we have people who come through who are federal judges, and they all got the same degree. So obviously you can change your mind. My favorite path of change is the folks who come in and they're like, I'll tell you one thing. I'm not doing criminal law. And then every single time those end up being our like criminal attorneys on the other end of it. So we know you're going to change, but I think that it is obvious to us. And the other thing is, if you don't feel a conviction about, I'm not saying you have to be like Rachel and you're like, I'm going to solve gun violence in our country, right? Like, I don't think everyone has that. I'm not saying you have to have that. You talking doesn't make people want to sing the Star Spangled Banner. That's okay. Like, you could still go to law school and not know exactly, but you at least need to know who you are and why you want to go to law school, because in this day of, so many law school applications, I'm going to have a stack of 400 people who have your exact same stats.
Hmm.
And so as I'm looking through that, and there's somebody who has like this lightning rod application, and then you're just kind of like, you know, just lukewarm, and I can tell like probably your parents are just making you apply to law school and this isn't really your idea. I'm going to gravitate to that lightning every single time because I have my pick of applicants. That wasn't always so. Like 2012, 2013, you could be kind of mid and you'd still get in, but that's not going to happen in cycles like this.
Hmm.
Do you think the lightning rod can have a little bit lower stats?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I mean, if you're a splitter applying to law school, you have to have extra electricity. And if
Mhm.
you're below median, you do have to have a little bit more. And I think yeah, it's a really good way to outkick what you anticipate.
Yeah, I'll be fully transparent. I had a 170 and my GPA was 3.91. And those are both below medians for Harvard, Yale, and Stanford. But I still got in. So
Yeah.
it like the lightning rod and the dean of Yale actually said to me, like, I read a lot of applications, obviously. But she's like, and I read probably hundreds, but I remembered yours. And so she didn't remember
Yeah.
my stats, obviously, but she remembered my story. So
Yep.
Because guess what? Those stats don't matter anymore. You're in.
yeah.
Right. That is not to say you can be a 120 and a 2.4 and apply. Like the stats
Correct.
that's the assumed. They're assumed you're going to have that. And now what? Right. And now what? And so then that's when you get to kind of sparkle and shine.
Mhm.
What are you looking forward to most in your 1 year? You're sitting here so close to orientation.
No, I'm so excited to meet everybody. I love I love meeting people. I'm excited to have like my apartment in New Haven and explore that. I lived in Tucson for 2 years and it was great, but like I feel like I'm more of a city person. And so my apartment is above like a coffee shop and I know it's so cute.
Good.
It's like 3 blocks from campus.
Yeah.
And
Seasons. You're going to have
I
seasons.
know, yes, I love the snow. I'm
Really
from Colorado and I
beautiful
love
seasons.
snow. Yeah. So I'm so excited for all of that. And so there's someone running for Congress in Colorado who went to Yale Law, and I went to an event with him. And I chatted with him and I was like, yeah, I'm about to start law school. And he was like, do you want my advice for you? I was like, absolutely. That's why I'm talking to you. He said, you know, you're gonna be fine. You're not gonna fail out. Like you're gonna pass no matter what. You'll learn so much. But the most important thing that you can come out of is like your network and your friends. And he was like, have as much fun as you possibly can with the people around you. And I was like, that is such good advice. That's usually not what you hear. And I was so happy to hear that because he's like, my classmates are still some of my best friends. They're my network. And that's what I've heard from so many other people. And so that's honestly so exciting to me is to get to have all these people who a lot of them will probably run for Congress, will
Yeah.
be judges, will be CEOs probably. And so I'm going to be surrounded by so many just amazing people, and I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Rachel, if you've listened to any of the podcasts at all, then you know I love that he told you that too, because
Yeah,
networking is to me such a key.
yeah,
And I mean, just to see, because of the law school I worked at, I'm still in the Facebook groups of those classes. And it's so fun to see them go back and they're all still holding each other up
yeah,
and reaching out. And they could recommend someone else, but they're going to recommend one of their classmates
yeah,
first to a
absolutely.
client. And it's really special.
Yeah,
A little different at Yale because like famously no grades, right? So you're going to have to study and keep up, but
yeah,
you don't have I do think that removes a layer of the competition because you are
right,
all in it together. Like no one else has to bottom out for you to get at the top.
right. And our 1L fall is no grades at all. It's just pass fail. And then after that, I think it's honors pass
Okay.
fail. And no one's failing. So they were like, no one's failed in 30 years, which that's what you'd expect. Um,
Yeah.
and so that is, I think it's so awesome because a lot of people talk about 1L fall grades that can make or
Yeah.
break
We
your.
talk about that a lot here.
I know. So like I get that. I'm very lucky to not have that. And they do that so that we can just make friends and like make a community. I know it's really sweet.
Amazing.
They're promoting that collegial environment,
Yeah. Hmm.
that legal network. I love it.
Yeah,
That's
they are.
Are you future casting your 1L summer yet? Do you have any ideas of what you want to do?
Yeah, I think um so a lot of Yale students split their 1L summer.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, well, okay, maybe splitting it, doing half like either DOJ or Colorado AG's office, and then half like ACLU.
Yeah.
That would be
Love that.
ideal. If I end up doing one of those for the whole summer, I totally love that too. I think like I want to end up back in Colorado, but maybe not until a bit later. But doing anything in Colorado would be awesome. Even like ACLU of Colorado, I'd love to do that.
All right.
But then also I love the idea of like being at the AG's office, um, the DOJ, maybe, I don't know. So yeah, we'll
Yeah.
see. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
So exciting.
Hmm.
Well, parting words of wisdom to people who, it's August 10th as we record this. It'll probably drop next week, so we'll be a week behind, but the August LSAT just finished. So there are people sitting exactly where you were at this time last cycle. Top 3 tips you have for them.
Ooh, okay. One is okay, you're sitting where I was last year. Start right now. I
Yeah.
was sitting there waiting for my score, not doing
Ah,
anything. I know. I was silly. I wish I would have started actually months ago, but if we're here now, start now. Start at least brainstorming. I think by then I had asked for my letters of rec.
good idea.
So make sure you ask for your letters by now. Also, oh, my tip for letters, I actually like was very clear with my recommenders on what I wanted in their letter. I was like, I'm going to be talking about gun stuff, and I chose recommenders who knew me through that area. But I was like, I would love if you could include some of that in your letter. And actually, one of my recommenders was a math professor, but he still knew what I was doing on campus. And so I said, can you please include some of that in your letter? And he actually let me read his letter eventually. And he said, Rachel was a good math student. He's like, but I come across like hundreds of good math students. What made Rachel different was that she wanted to like use her math brain to help the world. And I almost cried reading it. It was the nicest letter ever.
Yeah.
So anyway, but like, okay, being honest with your recommenders about what you would like to see in the letter. I also I had a different letter from a political science professor, and I sent her, like, I had a lot of classes with her. She knew me, but I sent her an essay I wrote for one of her classes, and it was about guns. And I was like, just a refresher, like, this is something I wrote for your class. I love like if you could include, things similar to this. Okay, so that's like 2 tips. Start earlier, be smart about your letters. And then tip 3, I know it's tempting. Don't go on the Reddit. The Reddit caused me so much stress because I was sitting there with like stats under medians, and I knew that. And anything Reddit said was, you will not get into a single T14, no matter what you do.
Yeah.
Unless you're an Olympic gold medalist. They always say, unless you're Olympic gold medalist or like a Rhodes Scholar, you have no shot with your stats. And that was so discouraging. I'd talk to Autumn and I would say, Autumn, like, I don't know. I'm so nervous. I even asked her, do I have a shot at these schools? And she said, yes. And she said, it would be dumb if I lied to you. Like, it's my job to be transparent with you. But yes, you have a shot. And yeah, it turns out that.
But no, not if you don't apply.
Right. Not if you don't apply.
Right. You have to apply. Because at that point, we're like, do I even apply? Do I even shoot my shot? And we are a shoot your shot kind of place here.
Dream big. Dream
big.
Yeah.
But also apply to some safeties.
Yes. Yep. Dream realistic too. Big and realistic.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd say don't take advice from people who, 1, are anonymous, and 2, who you wouldn't switch places with, because I think a lot of those people are projecting their own fears onto the advice they give. And
the 2 pre-law advisors.
So I'd say listen to the people who have the years of knowledge and expertise. Because if I would have just listened to Reddit, I probably would not have applied to Yale or Harvard or Stanford. But I did, and now I get to go there. So
the dream. I love it. Well, I couldn't have written this any better. And we did not program you. We like let you come on this podcast and say what you wanted to say. So grateful to have you here. We also have you kind of on hand of counsel as a mentor here at GradMissions. So if you do sign up and work with us, you do have access to Rachel when she has time between all of her networking and events. So we're just so thankful. I'm just still so grateful that our life paths have crossed, and I still believe that I'm going to be your speechwriter someday when you are the president, and you are saved in my phone as Madam President, and you'll stay there until it is true.
Manifesting.
Yes.
That's what we do. All right. If you have listened to this episode and you're like, wow, I want to go to Yale next year, then book a free strategy call with us. You'll actually meet with Morgan. We'll kind of see where you are. And if we think we can help you achieve your dreams, then you'll be invited to work with us. So thanks so much. Thanks, Rachel. We're wishing you all the best in New Haven this fall.
Thank you, y'all.
Good luck, Rachel. Thank you. Bye.